Hi Street Fighter Assassin's Fist fans, this is Joey Ansah, creator of the series. I'm currently enjoying a holiday in lovely Ghana, where I used to live in West Africa for 5 years when I was a kid, taking some much needed time off after the non-stop years that have gone into making this series possible. So, questions and answers. Let's get to it. Sean Anderson asked, what is it about Street Fighter that made you want to dedicate this significant amount of time and effort in your life to it? Street Fighter is not your creation, and yet here you are. You're all into this series, never giving up. And he added, what transformed you from a fan who just sits and plays the game into someone basically who actually put money, time, and himself on the line to make it happen? Well, I think like for a lot of people, Street Fighter, there was something of a revelation when it came out, and anyone who was into martial arts at the time became obsessed with it. And unlike other games, I think Street Fighter was something that you could master. It was almost like doing a martial art. You could almost achieve black belt status. So yeah, it was served as great entertainment, great imagination, sort of conjuring or stimulating fun, and kind of enhanced and bolstered my own martial arts training that I did, especially getting into doing tricking and the more flashy stuff and trying to emulate some of the moves from the game. Seeing the two movies, I was just really disappointed. At the end of the day, you love the game so much when the hype of the film started to build up and you see it and it didn't deliver. It was a crushing disappointment, and as you get older, you then become a full-grown adult, and you're like, this is never going to be done right. So why shouldn't I do it? You know, someone's got to do it. You know, these filmmakers out there aren't these kind of magical alien beings from another planet. They're all normal people, either a long way ahead in the film business or maybe starting out closer to the beginning. So I was just sick of what I saw, and something better needed to be done. And it's such a good mythology that the game and the characters deserved something, a story, an epic story. We all saw the anime Street Fighter 2, the animated movie, and everyone's like, why can't they just make a film like that? Why can't they make a film better than that, but with that, capturing that essence? That anime really captured the game, and I hope we've gone several steps beyond even the anime in what we've done with Assassin's Fist. So I hope that answers your question. That also, Natalie Norment, you asked a similar question, so that answers kind of for you and Sean Anderson. The next question from Colin Barker. What were some of the most challenging things for you and the crew to overcome during the making of SFAF, and how did you overcome them? It was a 7-week shoot in Bulgaria. We had an extremely tight budget, extremely tight. You know, we had a few $1,000,000, but we've made something that will stand up against a lot of big studio films made for close to 100 mil. As a result of that, it meant no one really got paid much at all. It all went on the screen. So people did a lot of hard, long work for very little, comparatively in the grand scheme of the industry. And there was very little, there was no leeway for overtime or reshoots. Most films these days have that luxury. There was like 3 days where we went over by 1 hour. I wasn't allowed any reshoots, so it had to be a very disciplined shoot. And it meant that I didn't get nearly the amount of time I would have loved for ease for the fight scenes. I mean, ideally you would have 4 or 5 days for the big epic set pieces. You know, you hear Gareth Evans, director of The Raid, who I'm a big fan of, like they choreograph and rehearse and shoot a fight over 5 weeks. What a dream to be able to do that. You know, we had a couple of days at best. One fight, we had 6 hours, and there's pyrotechnics going off, wire work, explosions, complex choreography, you name it. So that's just some of the issues we came up against, Colin. Next question, Kalvin Visser. If Street Fighter Assassin's Fist does really well, which it will, smiley face, is there a chance we could see a Final Fight spin-off? After all, it's in the same universe. Good question. Get a lot of these questions. Oh, are you going to do Fatal Fury? Are you going to do Rival Schools? Are you going to do all this random, comparatively obscure, non-mainstream kind of fighting genre fare? The simple fact of the matter is it's a commercial venture. Street Fighter, I pursued because I know the market's out there. There are millions of fans that are either actively still play Street Fighter or used to play. They're retired Street Fighter players. So there is a hungry audience for a Street Fighter film done right. Something like Final Fight is pretty niche. However, it would be cool moving on, if I continue with Street Fighter stuff, to work in those characters, even if it's to a cameo degree, into the Street Fighter world. People like Guy and Cody, Hagar. This is doable, but let's see. No promises. Next question. Vishal Babu. Good name. What do you consider to be some of the biggest obstacles preventing filmmakers from staying true to source material for the purposes of adaptations such as this? We've seen deviations ruin what could have otherwise been pretty good films, such as the Mortal Kombat movies, Tomb Raider, or even the original Street Fighter movie, directed by Steven D'Souza. Good question. I think the problem is that most of these filmmakers are just not fans of the source material. They don't know the source material to begin with, so they're on a diverted, deviant course from the get-go. This is what's crazy. I mean, you guys would assume that the studios that produce these films would pick a director. They would kind of do a headhunt for directors who have an implicit knowledge of the material they're going to be adapting already. But they don't. They get directors who've never played the game, they don't care about the game, they'll hire writers that don't know the game. So they're just literally picking this thing up and saying, okay, there's a guy that wears a red headband and a white karate gi. And it's just a mess to begin with. You could almost go through a list of these films, from producer to director to writer to choreographer. None of them know anything about the source material, and they're learning on the fly as the production is pulled together. And that's why you end up with derivative tosh, to be honest. It's such a stupid way of doing things. But it beats me. Sometimes a producer may have an existing script, an existing action thriller script sitting on their shelf. They then end up, through whatever twist of fate or, go get attitude, acquire the rights to some game, and they're like, rather than hiring a writer to create this script from scratch, let's just adapt this existing script I already have, swap out all the names, change a few things, and bam, we've got a movie based on the game. That happens a lot as well. I could go into it in detail, but I'm not going to. There's just not enough time. Okay, next question. Invincible Missats. The way I interpret the lore of the Street Fighter series, Goki stroke Akuma has never been a villain. He's more of a warrior following the code of honor from a bygone era. Most people misinterpret Goki as murderous, demonic, psychopathic, or downright evil, but most forget Goki never kills anyone who does not face him with equal or greater savagery. Will we see the softer and more sympathetic side of the raging demon? How will you develop Goki's sense of honor as a foil to Goken's more compassionate ideals? Great question, eloquently written. I think I love you. It's great. This is a really good question. And you're going to be very happy, Invincible Missats, because Assassin's Fist is a character story. You're going to see every side of the coin. You're going to see events portrayed from one character's point of view, which may demonize certain characters, but you'll later maybe see the same set of events from the demonized character's point of view, and suddenly realize, okay, this guy isn't evil per se. He's just got a very strong code and a very strong belief system and goal he wants to achieve, no matter what. So yeah, these characters that maybe you think are a bit two-dimensional have so much depth, and this series, people are going to come into it with the main hook wanting to see probably the fights most and the moves and stuff, but I think people are going to be blown away by how much of a character-driven narrative this is, and they're almost going to be more hooked on the narrative than the action. Not to say that the action doesn't deliver, because it does, but it means so much more when the action comes, because you've had this great emotional and narrative core, and characters you can relate to, that you feel yourself getting sucked into. Okay, next question from Kevin Jason R. Orelado. Kevin Jason R. Orelado. You are one of our most vocal posters on this page, on all our pages actually, so thank you for your support of the project. You're definitely one of our hardcore supporters. Your question is, I hope you guys took some of the questions I asked before, particularly this question. If SFAF becomes the definitive backstory of Ryu, Ken, Goku and Akuma, does it mean Capcom will officially acknowledge your work as canon and use the SFAF story for future SF games and titles? I can only say, I hope so. What myself and Christian Howard, who co-wrote the series together and spent a long time on the story, we found that what we've tried to create is the definitive backstory of the Ansatsuken characters, those that you've mentioned, and we've taken what is deemed pure canon by Capcom. We've taken elements that we like and that generally fans have responded to well from the Udon comic book series, elements that fans like from various Street Fighter anime that are out there, and trying to kind of create one unified, logical, chronological timeline of what's happened. And it works. I don't think there are too many chinks in the armor, so I hope that fans, that basically if all of you guys accept this as the definitive backstory, I think Capcom are going to say, well, why the hell not, you know? And I would love to see an Assassin's Fist game, and I think when you guys see the series, you're going to hopefully feel the same way, and I really hope you guys start banging down Capcom's door saying Street Fighter V better art style and tone be like Assassin's Fist, and let's bring in characters like Gotetsu as a playable character and whatnot. So yeah, next question. I'm going to try and get through as many as I can before I have to go out to dinner tonight. So hopefully we'll get over 12 as promised. Andrew Pond or Ponde. What styles of martial arts did you use to make Ansatsuken, and do each of the characters have their own style? Yeah, they do. Assassin's Fist as a series, narrative structure-wise, is split into the past and the present. The present is Ryu, Ken, Goken, in kind of present late 1980s Japan. And the past goes back as far as the end of World War II, but sits around the mid to late 50s for a large portion of it. So when we see a young Goken and Goki and Gotetsu, okay, there's 3 tiers, right? Gotetsu, tier 1, tier 2, Goken and Goki, tier 3, Ryu and Ken. So Gotetsu looks most old-fashioned. He's got the most arcane, traditional way of moving of Ansatsuken. So I don't know if you can see me on camera. As you guys all know, the kind of classic hand position that you see Ryu and Ken in is a modified version of this position that you see Goken in, which in turn has been a derived style from almost these old positions that you see Shaolin monks in. You're going back to very old kind of Kung Fu, almost Chinese era stances. Also, the more older traditional Ansatsuken has a lot of homages paid to Nyo, which are Japanese kind of warrior demons which guard Buddhist temples. You'll see them in all these poses like this, and leaning forwards. So they're kind of, a lot of Akuma stances are based on these kind of demon statues. So the further back in time you are, you'll see a more traditional old look. And as they modernize, Ryu and Ken is a derivative form of Ansatsu Ken that they learn. So there's other influences thrown in. You'll get to, understand where they've got more of the boxer's bob from, as opposed to the very grounded, solid, karate style stance work. So they do, even Ryu and Ken move slightly differently, have their own unique style, despite being in the same tier. Goken and Goki have their own style and personality through their style of fighting. So you should be pleased. Next question. King Tigra, or Tigra. Will this explore the evolution of Ryu and Ken's individuality as fighters, how they grew from clones, fighting style-wise, to unique combatants? Yes, that's kind of a question that is answered by what I said in the previous question, or previous answer. Okay, next question. Nedi Saba. Who is your favourite character and why? I'll be maybe slightly biased in saying Gorky or Akuma, because I played him, but also just narratively I find his righteousness so compelling, and his courage and kind of unfaltering ideals, so to speak. Next question from Will Gonzalez, who is another hardcore supporter. My respect to you, Will. His question is, if Street Fighter Assassin's Fist is a success, will you follow with a World Warrior Tournament storyline and introduce characters such as Sagat, Ryu, who has a history with Ryu, Guile, and Chun-Li? Also, if the series is a success beyond their expectations, and you get blessings from a Hollywood studio and Capcom, would you go ahead with a World War story with another series, or go straight to a movie, basically? Yes, and yes. The plan is to do a follow-up series to this, all going well, that would begin the World Warrior storyline, the introduction of Shadaloo, their whole cartel, the tournament, Bison's reasons for hosting the tournament, his real reasons, wanting the host body, etc., etc. The whole Ryu and Ken Sagat element, aspects of Street Fighter 1, blah, blah, blah. Just yes, basically. And a movie to be topped off by a big feature film, theatrical film at the end. Yes, that would very much be the plan. All going well, but let's see. Next question. Minseok Cho. Have you found that it has been a challenge to be faithful to the fighting style, but being able to incorporate it into the choreography? To me, no. As a lot of you know, I am a fight choreographer. I wear many hats, but I've done the choreography on Assassin's Fist along with Christian Howard, who's been my long-time collaborator and assistant choreographer, and now is a great choreographer in his own right. We did Legacy together, etc., etc. I hate when I see adaptations of games or fighting styles where the bulk of the choreography is just general Hong Kong style or Wushu-esque choreography, and then they just throw the odd special move in. Every single basic attack that Ryu, Ken, or Goken or Goki does have to be true to the game. So you're going to see the Ryu down knuckle, forward medium punch, all that stuff. I'm not going to spoil it, but trust me, it's all, you're going to notice so many moves from the game. We're not just talking about special moves, just the basic, filler choreo that makes up the bulk of the back and forth choreography. So you guys should be very happy at the detail that's gone into that. Is it difficult? Yes, potentially, but was it not achievable? Absolutely not, So yeah, you'll be happy. Next question, Retro Corey. How hard was making this project to become a fan's dream reality? It was it's harder than I could ever describe to you guys. If it wasn't for the passion, it's really shown how much I love Street Fighter, because if you include Street Fighter Legacy, this has been a 5-year journey for me, which I've put my own money, a lot of my own money into, and time, and a lot of the rest of the team. It's been almost full time for 5 years. It's very hard to imagine working on something literally 7 days a week for no pay, actually bleeding money out of you, with doors being shut around you. Getting Legacy done was hard enough, but Assassin's Fist, to get that money, independent equity in a recession climate, you know, it was tough. It was so tough, but it's been so worth it. And I think you guys, when you guys see it, I think you'll understand the work that's gone into it, and think, you'll scratch your head and think, these guys did this with this amount of money, and these other films we're seeing have this amount of money. How is that possible, you know? Right, next question. Okay, another one from Kevin Jason R. Arellado, because you're one of our favourites. I let you ask another question because you ask good questions. How will Akuma's origin story in Street Fighter Assassin's Fist compare or differ from other Street Fighter media, particularly the very disappointing Street Fighter Origins Akuma book by Udon? I think the only exception I could give to that book was the artwork. The story itself was just disappointing because of many of Akuma's primary characteristic elements were stripped away from that book. Everyone can have an opinion. Good to hear yours on that book. Funnily enough, I only actually got my hands on that book very recently, long after finishing Street Fighter. I screened the series just before Christmas to Capcom USA, including Ono-san. And I always, when I'm at Capcom, get as much swag as possible, as you can imagine. And one of the things they gave me was the book, which Ono signed. Great artwork. I love Udon's artwork, and I love a lot of their story stuff. I personally, too, was not a big fan of where they took his story. I think the issue is they had to condense it into a relatively short number of page length, so they had to go for something slightly more linear and less nuanced and deep. It's completely different to that. There's no, it doesn't really bear any resemblance to that. So if you weren't a fan of that, don't worry that we followed that. It hasn't been an influence for us. We've referenced older Udon stuff in some ways, but the new thing I hadn't even seen. Myself or Christian hadn't even seen the book until very recently. So yeah. David Duke, next question. Will Ken actually be a force to be reckoned with? He is my favourite character, and in my opinion, in some versions, he's always a step behind Ryu. Would really like to see Ken put hands on people Ansatsu Ken style. David, you're going to love Ken in this series. Christian Howard is the living Ken Masters, as you know, and his character's super badass. I know a lot of people, Ken will be their favourite character. There's a lot to like about him, personality-wise, performance-wise, and just physically. What Christian has done in this series with Ken is pretty breathtaking. So yeah, if all you Ken fans out there, you're not going to be disappointed. Okay, I got to race through these other ones. Okay, Franco Barroeta Fonseca. Joey, how did you handle and come up with the personal life side of the characters? The games touch very little on this subject, except the characters' ending sequences. It goes on to say, you know, you want to sympathise with them and their humanity. What do they eat? What's their sense of humour like? Well, that's all in there. I don't want to spoil it. They're very three-dimensional. They're very nuanced. There's a character in there for everyone. That whatever you've gone through in your life, there'll be a character that you really relate to and probably end up following more than others. Next question, Bobby Chang. He merely puts John Travolta for M. Bison. I'll call him now and ask. Next question, Jason Sampieri. Now, you're another hardcore fan of ours. Respect to you for your support. Hi Joe, I remember watching a behind the scenes feature on the original Back to the Future film on DVD. Blah, blah, blah. He goes on about the music. It's a very long question, so no disrespect. I'm just condensing it for viewers. So this is going to be a long video. The music is really strong in Back to the Future. I love it. It's some of my favourite score music. I'm a huge score music fan. On a side note, all I listen to on my iPod or MP3, etc., is score music. It helps me write, it keeps you creative. It's music that's been specifically engineered to drive your emotions and take you on a journey. And it's magic stuff. If more people listen to score music as standard, they will probably be far more productive and achieve far more of their potential. So there's a little tip. Yes, Patrick Gill is a long-time composer, collaborator of mine who I've known for many years. We ironically used to train ninjutsu together a long time ago. I had no idea he was into music back then, and it was years later when we reconnected, and he's worked on several projects with me, and the music is great. It's orchestral. It's right up there. It's going to rival anything you've heard on the big screen from studio films for a long time, and very memorable themes. One thing that's missing from cinema these days are themes. Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Superman, you know, those are themes. Terminator, Predator. Excuse me. So yes, I will continue on. The music, you're gonna love it. I can't give enough praise to Patrick for the work he's done. Next one, Tien Tran, sounds Vietnamese, Cambodian possibly. I wonder where you're from. Does this film have a strong focus on the relationship foundation between Ryu and Ken? It's something that hasn't been focused on in films of recent. We need to get back to basics. Thanks. Yes, there's a huge part of the narrative is about the relationship, the evolving relationship between Ryu and Ken. Brandon Hayes, you like to write a lot. I love your enthusiasm. How you address the time period in which Assassin's Fist takes place and make it interesting for newcomers. Assassin's Fist is a real period piece. As I said, the present takes place in the 80s, the late 80s. We even see elements of the 70s, late 70s. We go back to post-World War II, 50s, and the fashion and the grade really accompanies each of those time periods. So it is going to be a period experience. We haven't just taken the easy route to say, let's just make all of this happen in 2013. You know, it's a period piece, so it's in line. Because look, those hairstyles, the Ken He-Man hair, is not something that someone would instinctively rock in 2014, right? It's an 80s look. A lot of the styles and designs of the characters were born out of the sensibilities of the 80s and the early 90s. So that's where we've said it. We've kept it true. We're not taking the easy way out and kind of diverting on this. Okay, Chun Lim. You've been very careful to keep the authenticity of much of the game's original art direction. Did you find it difficult at any time trying to keep true to 20 years plus game design and balancing a little more pragmatic reality? It's tough. Street Fighter 4, I love it, but its bombastic cartoony style and the stupidly oversized characters has just completely warped younger, newer players' perceptions of how these characters should look. And Ryu is now the size that Zangief was in Street Fighter 2. You know, it's crazy. So that's an issue with people's perceptions because we've gone right back to the alpha period. But no, I think we know the source material on the artwork so well. We were very kind of clear cut on on the look and styles we wanted to go for to make it work in the real world as well. Okay, we're reaching the end. Carl, FJ, None, another hardcore fan. How difficult was it taking all the various sources, Capcom, anime, manga, udon, and turning it into a cohesive story? I answered that question before. Sarfaraz Janjua, you're a little hothead, you are. You love kicking off whenever the trailer does, every second of the day that the teaser's not out. You blow your top. I love your passion. Hold it down. It is coming. We do love you, and we're not holding back the trailer to torment you guys. His question is, what are your plans after the obvious success of this series? Would Capcom greenlight a World Warriors series movie? It's what we all want, right? We're working on it. Enough said. Lucas Horman, can we count on watching you perform a Hadoken in this season? Yes, you can. And that's it. That's all. And from bottom of my heart, I thank you guys for your support. And I can't wait to hear what you guys think when you see the series. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.